Jamaica's unemployment rate now at a record low of 6%. A woman who allegedly faked her kidnapping offered bail. Corruption case against a former education minister and his co-accused in the CMU education minister saga put on hold pending judicial review. Prime Minister instructs the NWA to prevent dislocation of members of the public while the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project is in progress. Jamaica's unemployment rate has hit a new record low. According to the labor force survey conducted by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin in April, the unemployment rate was 6%. That was 3 percentage points lower than the unemployment rate recorded in April 2021. Unemployment among women was 7.6%, a 3.3% decline from last year. Male unemployment fell by 2.8% to 4.7%. Reacting to the Statin data released today, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said there has been an increase in employment in various sectors.
Entertainment and food services, etc. The government of Jamaica will continue to pursue policies that are consistent with economic and jobs recovery.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. The woman who is accused of staging her kidnapping in an attempt to get $1 million from her family was today offered bail in the sum of $100,000. 27-year-old Shamika Miller, who made her first appearance in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court, is scheduled to return on September 8. Ms. Miller is charged with extortion and creating a public mischief. It's alleged that on July 4, Ms. Miller conspired with other persons and claimed that she had been kidnapped. Her family was sent a video which showed a gun being pointed to her head. When her demand for money to secure her release was not met, Ms. Miller reported that she was freed on Spanish Town Road in Kingston. A probe was carried out and it was discovered that Ms. Miller fabricated the report of her kidnapping. She was arrested and later charged by detectives assigned to the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch, CTOC. The High Court has ordered that the corruption case against former Education Minister Roudare Reid, Caribbean Maritime University President Fritz Pinnock, and their co-accused in the CMU Education Minister case be put on hold pending a judicial review hearing. This was disclosed when the case was called up in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court today. In March, the Supreme Court dismissed an application by the Financial Investigations Division, FID, to set aside an order that stayed the fraud trial of the 5 accused. Attorney Richard Swan, who is representing the FID, is to make an application to appeal the ruling on September 26. Bail has been extended for Mr. Pinnock, Mr. Reid, his wife Sharon, their daughter Cheryl, and counsellor for the Brownstown Division, Kim Brown Lawrence. They are scheduled to return to court October 3. They were charged in connection with a fraud and corruption probe into transactions at the Caribbean Maritime University. Justice Courtney Day granted leave in June 2021 for Mr. Reid and Mr. Pinnock to apply to the Judicial Review Court to quash the decision of Senior Parish Judge Chester Crooks for the trial to proceed. Judge Crooks then recused himself from the trial, stating that it would be a conflict of interest. The applicants are contending that Judge Crooks should have disqualified himself from ruling in the matter and are seeking to have his decision quashed. 2 Jamaicans are facing charges of conspiracy, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft for allegedly plotting to defraud a program for New York City's homeless veterans of more than $5.4 million. According to the complaint filed last month, 37-year-old Rudine Ware of Atlanta and 46-year-old Jerome Weir of Edison, New Jersey, filed hundreds of fraudulent applications for cash assistance through the enhanced one-shot deal program. The complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York and unsealed on July 6. More from O'Shane Masters.
The One-Shot Deal program offers one-time cash assistance to help people move from temporary to permanent housing and can be used for rent, security deposits, broker's fees, and other expenses. The New York City Human Resources Administration received more than 340 fraudulent program applications between 2020 and this year linked to where and where. Based on a review of about 60 applications, a city investigator found that the applications included fraudulent lease agreements between veterans and one particular landlord. The applications also contained fake identification cards and forms requesting payment to a company for brokerage services. The defendants obtained the personally identifiable information of at least 2 veterans by soliciting email applications for COVID-19 relief payments. More than 1,000 checks totaling over $3.6 million went to a bank account controlled by Ware, and more than 300 checks worth more than $1 million went to an account controlled by Ware. Ware also sent more than 100 checks worth over $1 million from his bank account to one controlled by Ware. Shane Masters, Radio Jamaica News.
A St. Ann man has been charged with threatening a witness in a murder case. 34-year-old Roudare Harris of Goshen in Brownstown, St. Ann, was charged yesterday. It was reported that during a hearing in the St. Ann Parish Court on Wednesday, Mr. Harris was observed making a slashing sign to a Crown witness. He was reprimanded by the judge and ordered remanded. Mr. Harris was subsequently charged. He will return to court on both charges on Tuesday. Mr. Harris is accused of killing 20-year-old Quan Campbell, a mechanic of Enfield, St. Ann, last month. Attorney Bert Samuel says independent investigators should be brought in by Kingston Wharves to probe the death of Stephen Scott Bambury. Mr. Bambury died on Tuesday after he fell from a ship at Berth 8. Chief Executive Officer of Kingston Wharves, Mark Williams, told Radio Jamaica News that a senior executive will oversee an initial probe. That's an internal probe. Speaking today on the morning agenda on Power 106, Mr. Samuel says that may be considered a conflict of interest.
The one by Kingston Walls will be seen by many that it is maybe a conflict of interest there. People would want outside investigators to come in, and therefore I think the police is going to rely more heavily on the Ministry of Labour's inspectors. And of course, they will listen to them to see what the safety records are. Somebody's going to have to account for if there is no, and there's a form in the factories regulation, there's a form that must be filled out to show that you have inspected and you sign off on this inspection. So the public should know it's not just that you do as you feel. There is legal responsibility for the safety of workers, and you must keep a register to show that you have been examining these ropes and chains and cables.
Attorney Bert Samuels. A separate probe is being conducted by the police and the Occupational Health and Safety Division of the Labour Ministry. Mr. Williams said the safety systems used by the company and vessels which access the wharf are in keeping with international standards. In the meantime, Mr. Samuel says he is expecting an in-depth investigation will be carried out by the Occupational Health and Safety Division of the Labour Ministry into the safety protocols that were in place at Kingston Wharves on Tuesday night. He says the incident has opened the door for a comprehensive review of the protocols. Mr. Samuel says proper lighting and a rescue team on standby are among the areas that should be examined.
Let's see if the Ministry of Labour inspectors who should go there at night now, that's what they need to do, is go at the time it happened and inspect to see whether the area is well lit, so that persons could have seen or heard. One is watching the other. The safety at the workplace doesn't depend on your employers. It also is a camaraderie between employees who can make protests, who can say we're not satisfied with the equipment, who can say there's not enough light around there, I'm not going to work, refusing to work if safety standards are below par.
Mr. Samuels says the occupational health and safety findings and those of an independent investigator are important in determining whether there are grounds for a civil suit.
At the end of the day, if there's any negligence, if there is something that they ought to have done which they did not do and it was related to this accident, then a civil claim may be made by the survivors, the family. And therefore the inquiry of the family to come and look at the safety standards at the wharf is no doubt something that they have an interest in, and on legal advice they may wish to see whether there's any negligence for compensation to be paid to the children if he had any or his family.
Attorney Bert Samuels. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has given instructions to the National Works Agency, NWA, To prevent dislocation of members of the public while the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project is in progress, there have been complaints about dust nuisance and poor driving conditions. Mr. Holness says the work is proceeding apace.
The NWA has been given very strict instructions to ensure that all the contractors respect the rights of citizens to be able to enjoy the freedom of movement, the use of the roadway without undue discomfort. So I know that they have increased their efforts to water the roads, to keep the dust down, to provide dust shields where possible, and to give access to persons who are living in close proximity to the construction work. I know as well that they have increased and indeed advanced the paving of roads because this will help.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. In the meantime, Mr. Holness says attention is being paid to the community of Grandspen after residents complained that the road project is having significant economic and commercial dislocation for them. He says the residents' concern will be dealt with. The Prime Minister was speaking yesterday at the Morant Bay Urban Centre in St. Thomas. Jamaica's COVID-19 positivity rate has increased to 20% after 140 new cases of the virus were detected during testing of 696 samples. 2 more persons have died. 92 patients are in hospital, 7 of them severely ill and 2 in critical condition. And according to a Reuters tally, more than 556.34 million people have been infected by the coronavirus globally. The death toll is 6.7 million. Infections have been reported in more than 210 countries and territories since the first cases were identified in December 2019. Now, in the U.S., an autopsy report has revealed that a 25-year-old black man killed by Ohio police last month had 46 gunshot wounds or graze injuries on his body. The medical examiner said it was impossible to know which bullet killed Jayland Walker or how many shots were fired in total. The report comes 2 days after hundreds mourn the death in the city of Akron, where it remains on edge. Officials have announced a curfew tonight amid near-daily protests. According to the medical examiner, Mr. Walker sustained serious injuries to his heart, lungs, and arteries in the June 27 shooting. He was killed at the end of an attempted traffic stop that began over minor equipment violations and quickly dissolved into a roughly 6-minute pursuit.